Welcome, final expense agents and brokers, to the most popular audio training and podcast in the industry, The Lead Jerk Show, where we cut through the red tape and give you only the best in expert interviews. So strap in and grab a cold beverage and get ready to learn and earn. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce you to the one and only Matt Lowery, also known as The Lead Jerk.
All right, everybody, we've got a really good informational-packed interview today with Pat Pegram. He is with LegacyAgent.com, and right about the last 15 minutes of this interview, it gets a little garbled. Thank you again, Skype. But never fear, I do have new software that hopefully will take care of this in the future. So if you guys can just deal with me on this one, I think we will have it rectified going forward. So again, Pat Pegram, and you guys sit back and enjoy. Okay, everybody, we have Patrick Pegram on the call today, and he is with LegacyAgent.com. And Patrick's been, I guess you could say, around the world as far as the insurance industry goes. And Patrick, I just want to say thank you for being here, and if you could maybe give us a little bit of information, again, your name, website, contact information, and kind of a summary of what you do, and maybe, you know, how you got here.
Oh, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to everybody. Again, a lot of people know me as the skipper, so feel free to call me the skipper. And it has basically because I used to be a good boater, so it was I got that name. But yeah, I've been in the insurance industry since 1985 is when I got into the industry. Been a full-time agent since a year after that. I'm from an age group or a era that doesn't exist anymore. I was recruited by an independent general agency during a time when insurance agents were recruited like a captive agent would be today, but to an independent GA. I'll give you an example. There used to be 30 or 40 of those type of agencies in the Detroit area where I'm from back in the mid-'80s, and nowadays you're lucky to find 2.
Right.
And it's a bygone era. The independent general agent or personal producing general agent kind of took over, where you got contracts direct for the longest time, and then in the mid-'90s, the IMO distribution channel kind of took over. But getting back to when I started, I started and struggled beginning of the business, trying to find my way into life insurance. I started in a time period where we didn't have do not call rules. We didn't have any of the stuff that agents have to go through today. And basically, you had a white pages, I guess you would call it, and you started picking names out of the phone book. And you could call anybody about anything, didn't matter. So prospecting back then had nothing to do with what people are used to today. I mean, it was basically contact as many people as you can. We used to use terms like smile when you dial. If you got 150 no's, that meant you reverse engineered that, because out of every 100 no's, you'd get 1 yes. So, in a day when you got 300 no's, you got at least 3 appointments. So so every no was close to a yes. I mean, you had to play stupid little games like that because you had to work very hard. Now, a lot of guys go out today and do a lot of door knocking on prospect lists and in a different market. But back then it was a replacement market. You were upgrading people to universal life plans, getting them out of old whole life, doing a lot of supplemental retirement plans. Interest rates were like 12%. So, illustrations looked great. So you could talk about all kinds of things and saving money in a UL plan. So it was a different era by far, but it gave me an opportunity to earn some money rather quickly. But it was still tough. Like anybody in the life insurance today is, when you're young, how do you find your markets? Who do you sell to? And we had to learn how to network very well, get involved with local organizations, clubs, just to get to know the who's who of the world, to be friends with everybody, lawyers, accountants, business owners. And I found a little niche in business owners, and I started working with them in the group health market. But as anybody knows today, your group health markets back then were all as earned kind of payments, didn't pay a lot of bills right away.
Right.
So I needed to have some type of way of making money. And along came this behemoth company everybody knows called Metropolitan Life.
Yep.
And there was an opportunity for me to join. A lot of say, well, they always have an opportunity. Not necessarily. I was going to join a new division of MetLife called Century 21 Insurance Services. Mm-hmm. That was a sales organization to put every agent inside a Century 21 real estate office. And because they had just purchased Century 21 real estate in the late 80s. And they were licensing all the brokers so they could split in commissions, and they would put an agent in each office, and we would sell homeowners policies. So they were taking life agents and teaching them how to be property and casualty agents to sell auto and home, preferably home, so that they can get those houses closed. And of course, being life agent background, we were going to then have an opportunity to sell a insurance policy to help cover the mortgage. Now, there wasn't a term for it back then, but that was the birth of mortgage protection. And Metropolitan had the first opportunity to systemize a captive audience to buy mortgage protection. And to give you an idea, I mean, I would sell between 3 offices. I would sell about 350 to 400 homeowners policies a year, of which that was a minimum. And we'd also sell almost 3/4 of them some form of life insurance coverage. Now, back then, they had decreasing term insurance, which was the common mortgage protection type of policy.
Right.
Or they had 5-year term, a level term. That was about it. There was no 10 or 15 or 20-year level. 5-year level term or annual renewable term was the only other product out there. So we sold a lot of 5-year term and decreasing term with the idea of converting down the line. But I became very good at it. I was probably the best that they ever had, which it was true because I stayed there till they decided to get out of the business, because just like anybody else with a big company, they managed to screw it up.
Right.
So they ended up folding out the company and merging it in with the General MetLife field force. And these guys, all they did at that time was a lot of burning and turning their own book of business of, taking money out of old policies, putting them in variable universal life policies so they get paid these huge checks. They really didn't know how to create brand new customers, brand new business. But the whole country was full of these guys. And here we are coming over from Century 21 Insurance Services, still working with the brokers, writing homeowners policies and mortgage protection, building new clients. But because we weren't selling the big ticket items, we were kind of looked down upon, even though I was the top producing agent in the country. But because we didn't sell whole life insurance or variable universal life, even though my first year commission and terms beat everybody else's out that sold those products in total volume, it didn't matter because it wasn't whole life or universal life because they didn't get paid as much money.
Go figure, politics.
I know. So I mean, that didn't take me long to realize, and then I left. I left $250,000 with MetLife that hadn't been paid to me yet.
Wow.
And tough thing to do, but they also didn't bother with group products very much, and so they didn't care as I slowly still built my group health business. And so when I decided to leave MetLife, I was still making a pretty good money on group health. And so it didn't really hurt me as bad when I left MetLife. And I started doing some work with payroll companies and employee leasing companies so I could get in and sell the group health products. And lo and behold, in 91, I founded a payroll company of my own by buying up another company that was small and local, and thus my payroll business was born to enroll people into the group health business. Basically, I wanted to sell payroll so I could sell more group health, and we expanded it to workman's comp and a few other things during the 90s. But it pretty much gave me a launching pad to some very high volume business owner type policies, from key man to executive bonus to a number of different things, buy-sell agreements, or simply a supplemental retirement plan. So I was writing a lot of life insurance just because of the payroll business that I, kind of ran itself with a couple of managers, so I didn't really have to be in there day to day. But the insurance side of things was perfect for me. And the funny part of all this, I'd already been about a 5-10 year veteran when the payroll really started rolling by the mid 90s.
Right.
And the funny part about that is I came up with a concept: you sell one thing in order to sell the insurance product. And there's a few other things we learned. Now, when I left MetLife, I did very well at MetLife. I was their top producing agent nationally for 3 years in a row. And I was going up against some of the guys that were real big whole life producers. And, so they really, did a very good job in one side of MetLife that wasn't very powerful. But at the same time, when I was there, they also did something that everybody knows today. They bought the rights to Snoopy.
Right.
And when you're like this, suit and tie kind of fellow, MetLife guy, and then the next day Snoopy's your boss,
yeah,
you kind of understand the importance of branding.
Right.
So as a young man, I kind of learned a good lesson from branding, and because of the thing that they were doing, working with real estate companies to sell home insurance, and then I used payroll to sell health insurance. Cross-selling kind of entered my mind. You do this to cross-sell. We always wonder, why can't I get enough leads? We're always talking about leads. I need leads. I need leads nowadays. Well, a good life agent creates opportunities to talk to people. A good salesman is trying to, just get an excuse to open the front door to get in the house. They don't really care about a lead. They just want to be able to talk to somebody. So most life agents back in the day were actually surviving on referrals and getting those referrals to go talk to somebody. I used business relationships through my payroll company or with Matt through the homeowners policies to sell more life insurance. And so I was using one product to sell another. A lot of agents are successful today in the Medicare supplement business and also cross-sell into final expense. And they write a lot of business that way. It's no different. You're finding one product as a lead-in to sell another product and cross-sell.
Right.
So I had not knowing it any better as a producer, I got, you could call it subliminal teaching. Okay.
Right.
I learned branding. I learned the importance of cross-selling, and I learned the power of relationship building with clients. So an old friend of mine, gave me a saying that I've held for 30 years, and it says, one-time sales, or basically if you just sell a policy in a household, one policy, all you have is a customer. The day you sell 2 policies in a household is when they become a client. And when you sell 3 policies in a household, they become clients for life. And it was an excellent saying. It's an excellent way of looking at our business. Our business is about building client relationships and clientele. In my 30 years, I've delivered 300 plus death benefit checks. I've attended every funeral.
Wow.
Now they've been checks for $1 million and they've been checks for $15,000. It doesn't matter. I've got a death from one of our clients, and the funeral's this Saturday. I'll be going to that on Saturday, trying to fit it in between my son's graduation party. So,
right.
But you don't have to stay a long time. It's the family knows who you are, and you go in and You make a presence, and it's respected, and a lot of people will ask you questions. You pass out a lot of business cards. But
Right.
what it does, it shows respect to the family and that relationship you've built over time.
Right.
And it's old school, but to me it works. And I've gotten a lot of business off referrals. I get so many referrals these days. I have to, refer it out
Right.
to other agents that work with me.
Let me ask you something,
Hmm.
Patrick, about going back for a second to the payroll company.
Yeah.
And you don't brag or anything, but I know that it was like big, and I want you to kind of say how you built that up and what it ended up, actually being, and how you transitioned out of that, because I think people probably would like to hear that.
Well, I've always considered myself a producer. I really didn't recruit anybody in the insurance business. What I did is I recruited salespeople, for instance, that would go out and buy and sell payroll itself, period. And then having obviously the client list and being part of the same company, we would cross-sell the retirement programs, health insurance, and we built that up pretty solidly. And because I had a strong property and casualty background, at first I was a life agent, then became a PNC agent. I found that I'm one of the few PNC guys that actually knew a lot about life and health.
Hmm.
PNC guys normally don't know how to sell life and health because they're selling a product that's plain vanilla, or
Right.
they're selling a needed product like car insurance, house insurance. It's something the government tells you got to have.
Hmm.
Now health insurance
Health
is something
insurance,
you got to have. So I always call that have to insurance. And
Right. Yeah.
but when I was taught and started in the life business, I learned the life business as a need product. You had to sell a want or a need, because nobody wakes up in the morning saying, I think I'm going to buy me some life insurance today.
Right. Right.
You've got to create that want or that need. And, and that's the difference between a property and casualty agent and a life agent. I think every property and casualty agent I met that started in the life business is a better property and casualty agent than their counterparts. And it's because we know how to wrap everything up in a nice pretty bow. We make people want to buy a house or protect their business on need, and it's a stronger sale. And that's kind of what I was doing in the payroll company. I started branching into workman's comp insurance, business owners policies. Of course, I was selling the buy-sell agreements, and we did quite a bit of that. But I did it on the backs of property and casualty agents. I went around and talked to them, and property casualty distribution is basically a marketing rep that goes around and kind of shakes hands with everybody in the office, tells them about their product. Same thing with group health business. You had a marketing rep from the company go around, tell everybody about their product, maybe help them with a case or two they're developing. So that's kind of what the property and casualty agent understood. And so what we did is, well, why not give them an opportunity, because property and casualty goes through periods of very fast growth and very tightening markets where they raise rates and make it very hard to get insurance because they don't want particular risk because they took a loss on it. We call that the cycle in property and casualty, where they're loose with the rates and then they're tight with the rates. It happens about once every 10 years. They get tight with rates for a few years. And when they get tight with rates, it's nice because a property and casualty agent doesn't have to worry about another agent coming in and stealing their business, because nobody really wants to write it. Okay.
Right.
So it's hard to get quotes. So you're getting basically a pay raise when they raise the rates to try to maintain your own business. So you're doing a lot of service work and taking the guys, out to the golf course a lot. That's what an owner does at a property and casualty agency. But, during the 90s, we had very loose rates. Everybody wanted to write everything. And what I found was you were working twice as hard for less money, because you would lose customers, or if you were competing against anybody, you had to make sure they cut the rate. So if the company wanted to keep them, and you made $1,000 off a $10,000 premium one year, and then they cut the rate down to $8,000, and then now you only made $800 just to keep the same client.
Right.
Because of competition. So this up and down cycle made it very uncomfortable for a lot of property and casualty agents. So what I did is I went in. I was a young guy still, 30 years old, and I started knocking on doors to some PNC offices that had at least 10 employees, where they had a strong commercial department. And I priced a product together that put a commission that a property and casualty agent could understand. Pay them like an insurance company would pay them. So I created a commission product like that for payroll. And since payroll was it was doing very well for us to open new doors for group health, what we did is we added a bottom line revenue stream that they weren't currently getting, that allowed them to walk into the competition's door to quote their property and casualty, and they did it by selling payroll also. So they could walk into a little manufacturing company that is spending $30,000 a year on their building insurance, and there's going to be a lot of competition for that. Well, if they do payroll with us, we understand the PNC agent, and we help them place that property and casualty business in certain ways, along with their group health. What we've done is we start tying multiple products together under the payroll umbrella. And believe it or not, by accident, we found out that the more crap you sold under the payroll umbrella, it was very difficult for any of it to leave you.
Right, because you're building value.
You're building the value, but it's also a pain in the ass for somebody to leave you.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, look at this stuff, in your personal life that, companies have learned how to bundle, and it makes it a pain to switch.
Exactly. So we kind of, by default, learn a great lesson, and so we started adding more product lines. Workers' compensation, we cut a deal with Hartford in the early 90s to do workers' comp. We eventually sold the rights to another company for naming rights and that for the product line that we developed with these companies, and lo and behold, now workers' comp is almost bought through your payroll company as a standard. Same thing with your 401k plan.
Right. Yep.
And a lot of this stuff we invented in the 90s and didn't really realize that it was just for us, myself and my partners, it was just for a way for us to make more money. So it was.
There's also there's like a whole new industry born out of that. What do they call them? Like human resources companies. They're I forget the anagram for it. PM. I can't remember. So.
There is payroll and human resources. It was called PEO, Professional Employee Organizations.
That's it.
That's where you would put the payroll under your guys. That was always a small percentage of the marketplace. A few states had a higher percentage of it, like Florida and Texas, but in general, it was only about 3% of the entire market of payroll. So it really wasn't a dent in our pocketbooks at all. It was there was a lot of fraud in it from other owners, and a lot of companies went under because of not paying taxes or insurance bills, things like that. So the federal government kind of stepped in the late 90s, early 2000s, and standardized certain things like your 401k plan couldn't be held under a payrolling company. It had to be direct to the ultimate employer who has direct hire and fire capabilities. So I became a very good HR consultant. I consulted with a number of different insurance companies on how to properly audit these type of organizations like PEOs. And, with our concept, as we called it, easy pay comp, or pay as you go workers comp, we were able to devise different ways of properly accounting for premium funds for insurance companies, and they were able to make higher profits because of it. And so I became a pretty sought-after consultant from Fortune 500 companies down to the local plumbing shop. We worked with everybody, treated everybody the same. So, and that's kind of how I really exploded the business in the 90s. And it was a fun ride, but like anything you do for 20 years, it got kind of tiresome. And then with the attack against group health insurance and that in the late 2000s, 2008, 2009, I decided to get out of the business altogether and retire. and that's kind of what happened to me in 2010. I got out of the business right after the Obamacare programs got passed through Congress, and was pretty satisfied. And then decided after 3 months of sitting on my ass to get back out there, and just strictly concentrate on insurance. And that's it. That's how Legacy was born. My company, Legacy Assurance Group, is a conglomeration of different IMO organizations, mega IMOs. A lot of people call them NMOs these days, and that's pretty much what we've done. Is built these type of organizations up. But I was always a producer. I didn't like the IMO business as I've seen it. So in 2011, I wanted to learn a few things. That's when I joined the insurance forum, and started learning what other agents are thinking. These are guys that maybe not had the kind of success that I had, but I wanted to know what everybody was thinking, and and that's what why I've been such a avid contributor to the forums. I'm always trying to help people and let them know, because I've had a lot of experiences over the years, and and a lot of people, if they don't have to make the same mistakes I did in a long learning curve, then they're better off. And so I started doing that mostly. So anybody's ever talked to me on the forum knows I'm a gabber. So I so I could put a 10-minute conversation and turn it into a 2-hour conversation pretty easy. So if you ever wanted to get a quick answer out of me, you better text me.
I hear. Well, yeah, we talked yesterday for what I think was ended up being 2 hours. So yeah, but like I said, if you're gonna be around Patrick Pegram, you better turn into a sponge because you're gonna learn something.
Well, I've been lucky and blessed. I have an eidetic memory, which is like a photographic memory for both audio and visual. So everything I've ever learned is stored up in that brain of mine, and it made me very good at products and in getting advanced stuff. You have to have a detailed mind if you're going to do well in property and casualty. So that was very helpful. I've done it all from personal lines to commercial lines. Had one of the largest book of business ever in history of property and casualty. Same thing with group health insurance. So it was a nice, buyout when I eventually got the business, was done. But the main thing I like best about all of this is getting back to when I started, which is life insurance business, one-on-one. Talking to people again. And so what we've done at Legacy is develop systems. Now, one of the things I've always done since the day I left MetLife is continue on with mortgage protection on a daily and weekly basis. Never really stopped it. I mean, I was doing mortgage protection 20 years before it was a fad to do mortgage protection. So, guys started, the big agencies started in the early 2000s, and I already had 15 years on them.
Probably before it was even called really mortgage protection.
Exactly. I think, everybody's familiar with NAA. Andy Albright, he started around 2001, I think, or 2002. And, there really wasn't a lot. He was a small regional company until about 2007. Then he hired a gentleman that I know that helped him with his recruiting, and they became more of a recruiting organization versus a pure sales organization. They do sell a lot of premium, but it's on the backs of a lot of naive individuals. And I just, unfortunately, they're better at recruiting than they are at developing rock star agents. And I'm not saying anything about that. That's, for an insurance company, they care less. Right. They just want to say, hey, if you're doing $10 million, $100 million, they just look at the organizations that's doing it. They don't care if, you step on the backs of 25,000 agents, Right.
So, right. Exactly. Look at, like you said, it's a unit as a whole. Yeah.
Yeah. We call it unit production in the insurance company game. And that's fine. I have nothing against NAA. They've brought up a bunch of recruits and, that have funneled into the industry. There's a lot of guys from the forum that started with NAA that have a lot of success in the FE market, and they always attributed great training with NAA. So,
That's
you know,
right, yeah.
it is not, for me to say one thing bad or another. I'm a producer. I've always done it one way, which is, if you nailed me down to how do you sell, Pat, I say, I figure out what people want of one thing so I can sell more insurance. Okay, and that's a great way. So mortgage protection right now has been extremely helpful for us over the years, because it's a grind. You got to do the same thing over and over again. I always tell people in the insurance business, you're a grinder. You're going to constantly do boring stuff day in and day out so you can get in front of enough people to make a good living. We realize that 100% of our time is divided up into 80-20. 80% of our time we're doing everything it takes to have that 20% of glory when you're sitting in front of people and having a good day or a bad day as a salesman. But it takes a lot of work to get there. Now, a lot of guys take shortcuts using direct mail or telemarketed leads. And the bulk of the industry uses some type of networking or referral basis, or have a program that they're pushing. And a program for me is selling something or getting something that somebody else wants, and then having a client relationship develop so I could sell them more insurance. And we've started a program called Heritage on something that I've done years ago, which is a faith-based contribution, based on your faith, usually Baptists or Bible churches, non-denominationals, that don't have a strong central affiliation nationally. They're more local controlled.
Right.
And we set them up for an endowment program within those organizations, so somebody can buy, we call it the gift of life insurance, to donate to their church upon their death. Now, that's great. There are a lot of companies that have done that, but they've only gone after the top 5% of the church that have a lot of money to invest, because they're really asset gatherers, fund managers. They don't want to go out there and the rest of 95% of the church and ask them, for money they don't have. And they're not life insurance salesmen, so that's something they don't care about. So what we've developed is an idea that everybody in the church, for as little as 43 cents a day, can contribute a lasting gift to the church upon their death. And we surround it with 20-pay life insurance plans, single premium for the wealthier folks, or annuities. And we've decided to, pick a few carriers that a lot of guys are familiar with for that particular product. And we go in with a church. We actually are getting extremely well endorsed by the clergy. So we're getting everyday ordained ministers that want to be a part of the program so they can spread the word to their other organizations, just to keep building that. And that is a way to sell, a policy that's eventually going to be paid to the church, but it builds a relationship with a family that would never send in a direct mail card.
Right. It develops a relationship with the whole congregation.
Exactly. You got a congregation. Now, we've all sold final expense, and we've gone in, and there's some very religious people in there. They're very faith-based folks. They're about 10% probably who you see on a regular basis that, walk and talk Jesus everywhere, okay, in that household.
Right.
But it is, a smaller percentage of who you bump into. But, they may belong to a church, and there's 400 family members in there. And you got to think about it. Out of those 400 families, maybe 10-15% will actually send in a some form of direct mail piece, whether it's car insurance to final expense if they're old enough, to be in that market, to an agent for them to sell a product. Well, with this particular program with Heritage, we're able to establish a relationship with, of something that's very important. We find that the policies stick on the books, never have an NSF problem, because what are they going to do? Welch on God, So
Right.
It's a very strong tie, basically.
Pretty strong emotional.
It is.
Yeah.
And one of the things we've gone in as we go back after the campaign or the initial push with the church, because one of the unique things is we strictly dedicate the initial campaign. Because nowadays fundraising is done on a campaign, 1 month, 2 months, and you push a particular project so they can get on to the next project. So we do it by a campaign, depending on the size of the church. It could be 1 month or 2 months. And we focus on trying to meet as much of the congregation as we can during that time period, because we're acting strictly on behalf of the church and we don't mention any other product. It's strictly purchase this product to give to the church. We're able to bypass the do not call rules, because we're working for the charity, basically. And which is great. We can get a hold of everybody. They give us their client list. We also help them with some splash pages and links from their website to learn more about it. We do a lot of advertising before the campaign in the church. The enrolling agents are sitting there, which would be like one of our guys, is sitting at Sunday Mass at, if there's 3 masses, they're going to be at all 3 masses for the line going out the door, where we usually say hi to the pastor and stuff, and they get introduced. We might, toward the end of the just before the campaign would get started, the agent will be able to say 5 minutes in front of the congregation about the campaign. But not everybody goes to Sunday church. So
right.
Even if there's a 400 family member church, we'll be lucky to get in front of 100 people. All right, and it's just because not everybody's heard about us, can't get a hold of everybody, and such. So we have an ongoing web presence to continue afterwards. But the thing is when you get in front of that many people, they're easy to sell, and it's on average about a $500 a year policy, but and it goes to the church as a beneficiary. But what happens is you've built that relationship up, and we have a little setup 2 months later of offering a free gift, because they've generously gave to the church the gift of life with money that's above and beyond what they contribute on a weekly basis. We've offered them an opportunity to get a free financial review from Legacy as the sponsoring organization. And if they would like, we can come by, do the usual close Tuesday or Wednesday and tell you what it's all about. And, you go back and forth and get them on the phone. And generally, we have about a 90% success rate of coming back in the home. And that's where you open up your product portfolio.
Got your annuities,
you got everything. You're doing a full financial review. If you did your job right the first time during the presentation for the church, you took some mental notes and wrote them down later of what they had already in the household. Because you do some things like, comparable, well, what is the gift of life? It's kind of like a life insurance plan. You're familiar with life insurance. Do you have life insurance on each other? What is it? And those are mental notes. So you're, giving comparisons during that presentation, but you already know they got some life insurance in the household. So they understand it and they know it. Now, a lot of people have variable universal life plans that are blowing up. And we do a lot of rollover because of that. And, they're able to get some good programs, just by replacement. So,
right. Yep.
And that's where you can start writing $3,000 and $4,000 commissions. Generally, guys that have done the enrollment make twice as much money on the meeting 2 months later. So.
Well, look, let me ask you this,
Yeah.
Patrick. And we discussed this a little last night on the, and obviously anything's proprietary, you don't want to give away, but can you touch a little bit on that direct response stuff we talked about, as far as your philosophy on, because obviously there's a lot of guys that are listening that do final expense and mortgage protection.
Well, I tell you,
your philosophy on the direct mail marketing and stuff like that, because that was very, very, very good.
Well, I'm a big believer of target marketing. I don't like. I guess I come from a work ethic that if you can't do it yourself, it ain't worth doing. And I don't trust people, third-party vendors, to know what I need to get in front of somebody to make a sale. Third-party vendors are in the business of selling pieces of paper with a stamp on it.
Right.
Okay, they're not interested in making money on how you're going to sell. Okay, I mean, there's a lot of the FE guys, probably know that, they've gone through vendors. It's hard to trust whether or not they mail it all out. All those question marks. I really do trust that most of them do mail out the amount they want, but it comes down to what are they mailing out? What does the envelope look like? What is the the look of the envelope can determine whether or not the thing gets even opened or tossed as junk mail. I mean, there's a lot of psychological reasons to get people to open up an envelope, and the more people opening up an envelope, the more chances you have of getting a response. So our target marketing is let's look at who we are going to look at and who we're going to make money at. So, for instance, like in the final expense market, everybody's familiar. There are companies and vendors out there that are basically mailing from 50 to 85. Now we've pulled numbers within our own organization, surveyed a few others that do the same thing. I've got a few of the vendors that give me their statistics. I've always been a numbers cruncher kind of guy. So what we found with people can give me sales input is that about 65% or 2/3 of the mail respondents are between 50 and 57 and 76 and 85.
And that 50-57 is the highest, I think you said, the highest
the
SSI.
Highest, yeah. It's almost 45% of the respondents. And the 76 to 85 is there's not as high a percentage because there's just not as many people that old.
Right.
So the older you get, the number of people start decreasing of who's living. So, so the biggest number you're going to get is that 50 to 57. Now, anybody who's ran final expense can relate that they're harder to get the hold of. They're most likely to be, SSI, disability, very poor. So, and if you mail to a higher household income list, those are people that are working during the day. The total opposite of how we think final expense should be run.
Right.
Running those folks mostly at night. And harder to sell. Just plan out harder to sell, hard to door knock. And, and then what we've also taken a look at, those who've given us the data, is even though they're 2/3 of the mail comes from those age groups, only 15 to 18% is the total volume, or AP, annual premium. So your 2/3 of your mail is only going to result in about 18% of your total volume of what you're making commission dollars on. The other 80% is in that sweet spot from 58 to 75.
Right. So you got a lot of waste in there. Yeah.
Yeah. I look at it this way. Even though I'm mailing out a lot more people, they're not buyers. Or I can't get a hold of them. So the people I can get a hold of that do buy are the people between 58 and 75. So I believe, first off, you target that age group, from the get-go, and eliminate everybody else. Now, that's total opposite how a vendor would think. A vendor just cares about getting you your 2%, 1.5% return. A lot of these pay-by-the-lead companies, they don't give a crap about the quality of the lead. They only give a crap about the lead. They got one. And the fact that you got a lead, they can mail it out to you. I've talked to a lot of guys with a lot of different companies use these pay-by-lead vendors, and they disproportionately have a lot of people in their 50s versus a lot of people in their 60s, almost like a 5-to-1 difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that age filter is important. Yeah.
And then as soon as you start adding in an age filter in there, they want to raise the rate.
Bingo.
And I go, well, why? Because you're not going to get as big a return. Then just widen your market. You don't have to do it in that zip code. Yeah, what happens is, if you're in a county, and you can pick any county anywhere in the U.S., but let's say there's 10,000 people to mail to that are between 50 and 85. We're not even going to use income and other filters. But if you eliminate the 50 to 57 and the 76 to 85, you might end up with 4,500 out of the left out of that 10,000.
Right.
Well, in my opinion, if I'm only selling 15% of the people, of AP, I would much rather have a better chance at making sales. When I eliminate those folks and concentrate on the 58 to 75 range, I get a good solid response of ultimate buyers. Now,
even if it's a lower response rate.
Even if it's a lower response rate, I make more money. And a lot of people call that return on investment. Okay, and it's true. Now you can improve your return on investment on ultimate buyers by changing filters around, like African Americans and Hispanics. A lot of people like to only mail to those folks.
Right.
Now that might take that 4,500 and knock it down to like 1,500 in a county, and then you're only mailing to 1,500. But that'll increase your responses, because in my experience, it doesn't matter what county you're at, where at in the U.S., whether it's California, Texas, Michigan, African Americans and Hispanics respond more to direct mail final expense than anybody else. Period. They believe in insurance. They like the idea of it. And it doesn't matter if it's an age group of 15,000 to 30,000 or of income, or if an income group of 40,000 to 50,000. They all respond more than anybody else. And but you're limited to who you can mail to, but you're going to get a higher percentage return. So the guys that really sell a lot in our organization will mix it up between whites and Hispanics and African Americans, so that doesn't really fall into it. So they use other filters like income, and then it comes down to the type of card that'll create a greater response. Now you can get a greater response that doesn't even mention life insurance on a FE card, and a lot of your seasoned veterans like that because all they need is an excuse to walk through the front door.
Right.
But I never say it's a good idea for a newer agent. And a lot of these IMOs out there are using a variation of Chris over at Lead Connections E64 card. And, that they, one way or another stole it from 4 years ago. And, that's the way it is in this business.
Right.
And everybody uses that form of card. But they don't realize that these IMOs using that card, they're not... they're giving it to new guys that don't know how to sell. And FE leads don't stay on the shelf very long. You gotta get out there and see people, because these people are antsy that you're mailing to, and if they don't see something, they're getting 5-6 cards a month. They'll just send in another card.
Right.
And so when you get a direct mail card, you can talk to aged leads. That's no problem. But in reality, if you're going to make a sale, you got to get to them as soon as possible. And so I always tell people, you get a card, you make sure you're in front of them within 2 weeks. And otherwise, they're probably already mailed in somebody to compete with you.
Yeah, and I get beat up sometimes I've had that conversation, and, I told you this the other day that, you're probably one of the few people that I've talked to that have that attitude and that philosophy, and I'm sure it's from experience. I don't want to work a lead that old. I mean, I don't want to work an old lead, which I consider old 90 days. So, and some people are like, well, no, I can get out there and blah, blah, blah. But, I think the quicker you get to them, the better off you are.
Well, it is. I mean, we don't, Legacy doesn't have a lot of new agents. We don't recruit guys that are, working somewhere else into this business.
Right.
That's not what we're about. We're a simple MGA shop that's bringing in experienced and seasoned agents and putting a system, a brand together, giving them an opportunity, to have enormous support technologically, along with marketing, creating different markets and things along that line. Our philosophy is, we teach an agent how to sell another policy. And, you can, as an individual producer, we all fight for the best commission possible. But as an individual, we become an island. And it's very difficult to be extremely successful on an island. Now, some guys do it, and I did myself. But my island became more successful the bigger I got, and I became a huge organization. Mm-hmm. And now I'm small again, but now Legacy is becoming a big organization again, because our philosophy is we're taking guys off the island and making them better producers. And now that we have this mentor relationship is where our foundation is built on, we create an accountability standard for every producer that has to account to his mentor on what they're doing. And, they have a person to bounce ideas off of, how they want to get. Our specific thing is we do exclusive leads for our agents under a group basis for bulk purchasing. Each agent's given an exclusive territory, so we can't, if we're marketing an area where there's no other agents that work for Legacy in that area.
Right.
So they're getting those leads, and that's it. We don't resell leads or anything like that. They're their leads. And, a lot of people say, well, everybody says that, but it never happens. Well, they can believe what they want. That's the fact. And, we're never going to have 3,000, 4,000, 10,000 agents with that philosophy. But what we have are agents that all make over $100,000 net. And these are agents that, want to go to the next level. We get people coming in all the time through our registered investment advisory division that, are $4 or $5 million producers, and they want to go to that next level and become $10 million producers. And, we tell them, hey, come on over to Legacy. You're part of Legacy. You're part of our partnership. We're going to teach you. The guy who teaches them has a habit of taking guys and making them $10 million producers. And he himself is a $30 million a year producer. Wow. And that's kind of what we do is we try to make rock stars and have rock stars teach them.
Well, and you're upfront about prerequisites too. Like, okay, if you come on board, if you're gonna be involved in a mail program and work off direct response, then this is the minimum you need to drop. And if you're not, then you need to think about it.
Well, I give everybody. I don't have time for BS kind of thing. So I tell everybody, look, one thing we expect is we want 100% of your life and annuity business to run through Legacy. Now we're an independent shop. We have over 50 carriers of annuity and life business, from fully underwritten to final expense to mortgage protection. And we've got all the main carriers out there, and we have very good contracts, but we're not a multi-level marketing organization. We only have one level of management, and that's the MGA, and then it's the agent. So there's not all these people to feed in between like a lot of these IMOs do. So, but for us to give 100% commitment to making an agent successful, we expect 100% back. But we also have an open release policy. So if somebody's not happy, I'm not going to play the game. They want to release, that's fine. Right. We don't get anybody that wants to release because nobody ever leaves. Okay, so
right.
So I've not had to experience that, but everybody who knows me in the business knows that my word's my bond. I've been around 30 years, never burnt a bridge. I'm still one of those guys that can pick up a phone and talk to any CEO of any insurance company in the country and get a call answered in 5 minutes. My partner, Tim Brown's been in the business 47 years. He's the same way. He can get a call answered inside, 5 minutes. These are because of the people we started with back in the 80s. They're all heads of the insurance companies now.
Right.
And we never.
Y'all you kind of grew up together.
Yeah, we did. And it has nothing to do with anything other than the fact that, we never burnt a bridge. Some guys, they don't give a crap about the insurance company. Well, you start ticking off all the insurance companies, you're never going to have a 30-year career. Let me put it that way. You're going to tick off enough people to basically be a fringe player with fringe companies, and it'll be very hard for you to make $1 million a year.
Right.
Now, we're going to make $1 million a year in the life business. It happens every day. And it's mostly doing business with insurance agents that, go through one MGA that specialize in a certain niche or field, whether, guys are asset gatherers, selling a lot of annuities and single premium life. I got a gentleman that strictly runs my FE leads, and he writes $30,000 a week in life insurance commissions. And he does that about twice a month. He's never had under a $50,000 a month.
Wow.
And he only works 2 weeks out of a month. So I asked him, the same thing. He just he's a good salesman. He came from another organization, an IMO, and all they cared about was recruiting. And all he cared about was selling.
Yep.
So I said, well, that's all we care about. I don't want you to recruit. guys call me all the time wanting to join Legacy, and a lot of guys are kind of uptight because I tell them what we expect them to give us all their contracts, but at the same time, we're going to give you a fair commission, but I'm not going to buy and cut my commission down to 5 points. What we're is you're buying into a brand as an equal partner. And as an equal partner, we're going to commit this kind of support level that you had as if you were a partner in a business. And that's
Right.
one of the things I try to teach everybody is this is a business. This ain't a job. And you have to treat insurance as a business. You run it as a business. You have income. You have expenses. You have projected expenses. You have marketing costs. You have labor costs. The bigger you get, the more help you're going to need.
Yeah, and you've got to earmark and allocate all
Exactly.
that. Yeah.
It's but it's a business that I tell people that if you can get done properly, and you've got enough startup capital to get you some leads right off the bat. Most of our guys are weaned off leads after about a year. They just use leads to direct mail just to get new blood in their referral system. And, so they're popping down $5,000, 5,000 person mail drops. Basically the 5,000 piece mail drops within maybe once every 6 weeks just to get some more, business, and the referral network can get, bigger. And that's the thing, that we try to tell folks is, this business of one and done selling is very product sales. It's not creating client relationships. Now, a lot of people go, well, I'm in the FE business, and that's just the kind of customer you're getting. Is there, a product sale? And I can understand that. So, you can still be in the FE business and, just change your demographic a little bit and create a class or higher income client out of it. And most people are afraid to get referrals. And to me, referrals are the easiest thing to get. I actually tell them it's harder to make the appointment with a referral than actually getting the referral. And and that's the problem you got there. And we've basically gone around a lot. A lot of guys that want that top dollar contract. We're not for them because you're not going to get 125, 30 contracts with us. That's almost top MGA kind of levels. And in our situation, we're most of our agents are at street level contracts with huge support. And the bulk of their production comes from term insurance and universal life insurance. Final expense is a great way to get started in this business, but if you're going to be a life agent, you got to sell life insurance products. And then I'm talking cash value and term products. And then you have to get in front of the people that buy that. Now, the one thing I like about Final Expense, it gets me in front of a lot of retirees that have money set aside, whether in retirement or old UL policies. And I market like the E64 card when I'm sending out direct mail. I'll send it to people making a minimum of $30,000 in income to $80,000.
Yeah, something's going to be in that house.
And and I get responses that are around 1.5%. Now, I happen to live in the greatest state to get direct mail in, and that's Michigan. So I only drop myself, my target audience. I don't have to make a living at selling life insurance on a day-in-a-day basis with direct mail, but I feel it's important that I get out there and sell every day, just so I can stay current with what's going on in the household. Now, I just target my audience to be who I want to sell to with higher end products. But like I said, I just need an excuse to get in the door, and everybody loves me. I feed off that relationship. Now, here's how I get everybody to love me. Everybody has their little stick.
Right.
Everybody has their little stick how to love them. But if you ever really saw a picture of me, which I never show pictures of me, my picture that everybody sees on the internet and everything, that's from an old friend of mine from college. He's a good-looking dude,
My wife was disappointed, Pat.
He's a good-looking dude. He's actually a fellow historian, history buff. He's a professor in history that's specialized in Middle English history, like the Dark Ages and stuff. And wrote a few books. Very, very boring read if you're into that kind of thing.
Right.
But he's a good-looking guy, and he's made his money on part-time modeling. So I said, you see him all the time on all these templates. He's sold his picture all over the place. He's on a lot of internet templates.
Yep.
He's done commercials and stuff. So I just borrowed his picture, and I said, yeah, everybody likes you. So in this world today, they don't see me, so I might as well have them see you. So
I guess we both have a face for radio.
That's it too. And but yeah, I'm 6'6", about 400 pounds. I'm not a little guy. I was built like a brick house. Played ball when I was younger, obviously, and but I always used humor because I was a big guy. So when I talk to people, I'm always about making that appointment, never selling anything over the phone. But I always end the call with something like, now, when this gentleman comes up to the door, he's going to be about 6'6" and as wide as your house. So please don't call the police.
And
Exactly.
He's not the police.
I always end an appointment call on a laughing note. And the funny part is, and I've been doing this since I was a kid in this business. So I get to that front door and I knock on it, and the guy opens up the door that, made the appointment, and he looks up at me, he starts at my navel, looks all the way top of my head, and he goes, "Damn, son, you are big." And it's a good laugh, but I learned from the best in this business. And when it comes to building relationships, his name's Anthony Robbins. Tony Robbins was an old friend of mine, and I got into this business at the same time he started writing his books, and I learned a lot in the 80s from him. And it's basically allowed me to walk into a house and gain total control because they basically just insulted me at their door.
Right.
So using that humor and everything, it relaxes them. And so I'm able to come in and usually get a cup of coffee, a cup of tea. You guys from the South, everybody has a glass of sweet tea down there. And
That's right.
I've done enough selling in Texas to, everybody gets me a glass of sweet tea. And, and anytime you get somebody to go off and do something for you, you get more control in the house. So, my warm-up, I'm a coffee table salesman, so I find the biggest, sturdiest chair in the house, and sturdy is a priority. And I just sit down in the living room and I get to know one another, and and we all have a way of getting to the point when it comes to final expense cards. We do the same thing in mortgage protection too. We send out a letter very specific about life insurance, disability, unemployment insurance, about their mortgage, and most people want to just protect their mortgage. And there's John Dugan has his 3 reasons why did you send the card in, that he learned from, I think, Tim Withers, and those types of things. Very common sales approach. It's been around for years, and these guys didn't invent it. They just are using an old idea and perfected it and put it into their style. There's no original idea in the insurance business. It's been done. It's already been done. Your job as a salesman is to adapt what's been successful into your own style. And when you've done that, you're able to get, a good rapport in a household. And you do the same thing in a mortgage protection. Why did you send this card in? Was it are you interested in the life insurance, disability insurance, unemployment insurance? Are you worried about paying off the mortgage? Something happens to you and your spouse? You just ask them simple closing questions. An interview in an insurance interview in a household is always asking a closing question. It might not be give me a check kind of closing questions. It's small battles, winning the battles. And a lot of folks have taken like Sandler sales system training on everything like that. And he has a way of breaking down the selling opportunity to 49 steps. And one of his steps is to realize there's 3 people that you're trying to sell to. There's a child, there's a parent, and there's an adult. And The child is the want. The need. I want this. Have you ever gone into Walmart's with your kid in the basket and they're trying to grab stuff off the shelf and they start screaming and yelling and say, I want that, I need it, I'm going to die if I don't have it.
Yes, sir.
That's the child in every person. And nothing gets sold without that child wanting it. And it's simple as that. So if you cannot sell the want, you've never sold the sale. And, that is important. That's about 80% of everybody's presentation is creating a want, creating a need in the sales process, and having somebody basically, make it sound like it's their own idea. A good sales presentation involves a lot of stories. I'm a big storyteller. I tell stories based on real life experience, so it doesn't look like a lie. Everybody has some kind of experience, whether they know somebody that happened to them, or even your manager or your upline. Somebody will give you a story. You just have to embrace it as your own and relay it in your sales process. And that's how people will relate to you, identify with you, feel comfortable around you, and will buy because of you. It doesn't matter what the insurance company name is on the sticker. It helps a little bit, but that helps the buyer's remorse, not the actual decision to make a sale. So when you've satisfied that child, you have to worry about, and this is where most salesmen fail, is they don't take care of the buyer's remorse, the nagging kid that's going to say, no, you don't need that, Dad. We've got you taken care of, or anything like that. That buyer's remorse sets in, and that's because you haven't satisfied the parent and the adult in that sale. Now, what does a parent do with every child? Well, they ask the question, do you really need this? Is this the right thing for you? Now, you can identify that in the insurance business. Do I really need this? Have you gone through the steps in your presentation to explain that they don't have any money, and if they die, their children are going to have to pay $15,000 in burial costs? So obviously they need it, but it's got to be spelt out for them to understand that's why they need it. You've got to bring it out. That's right. Your sales presentation has to satisfy that, do I really need it? And then the adult in all of us is simple. Is this, am I getting the best deal? Is this product right for me and my family? Can I trust the insurance company? Those are those logical questions. Those are the nagging kid, that's going to be the beneficiary that's going to call and sabotage the sale because they told Dad that he's wasted his money, or told Mom she's wasting her money. Those are those logical questions. And you ask the question at the end of the sale, hey, great, who are your beneficiaries? If they're children, I always say, are they aware that you're going to be having this program, for them to take care of their costs? Great. Why don't you give me their phone number? I'll call them, explain everything to them, what's going on. When you get the policy, let them know that they're the beneficiary. So if something happens, let's say it's Foresters, and you need to make a claim, you're going to need to look for their Foresters policy, or call me, and I'm going to send you a card with my business card, so in case something ever happens and you can't find anything, you know who to call. What I've done is I addressed the potential objection and pain in the ass person that could sabotage a sale by simple phone call and card. A lot of people like to send thank you cards after a sale, and that's great. You should. But I also like sending thank you cards, a special card that I developed, to the beneficiaries to let them know that they've got an insurance policy that's they're beneficiaries of. Yes, that's an excellent way to get a referral, but I don't look at it as that way right away. It is all about getting that buyer's remorse taken care of. Addressing an issue before it becomes an issue.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, Patrick, let me ask you this. Since we're talking, we're touching on a little bit of final expense and mortgage protection here, specifically on those two. If you can say, if you feel comfortable saying, who do you like, the most? I mean, who's maybe your favorite couple of carriers, and why?
the mortgage protection market, notwithstanding the big IMOs that are pushing mortgage protection, you cannot make and live on mortgage protection alone, simply because there's just not enough closed mortgages in a state. Now, the big companies, they're constantly reselling mortgage protection leads over and over and over again to the unsuspecting agent. And if it's kind of funny, I've interviewed one of the larger IMOs that do this, and I talked to about half their top 20. And all of them say the same thing. They buy aged leads because they've found that none of them ever been worked. So the IMO sells these very qualified leads to a bunch of unsuspecting newbies that don't know how to sell anything. And the way they've got their system is after like 4 weeks, 6 weeks, if you haven't sold it, they can resell it. And so even though, a mortgage protection lead in reality costs about $60 to generate per lead basis. But they're selling it for like $30, $35 to the agent, as a fresh lead. And then they make the upline 5 or 6 levels up, pay an extra $3 or $4 each, so they get their $60 back. And then in turn, in 4 weeks, 6 weeks, they're turning around and selling that lead now as a 2-month-old lead for $20. So now they're making a profit. And they'll sell it again 90 days later at $14. And again, all the way to 6 to 9 months where they're selling it for $3 or $4. And but they've made double what they've cost them to generate that lead off a bunch of agents. Now, the agents that really know how to sell, they love buying those 90-day leads, because it's only been sold twice, and chances are nobody ever did anything. And the guys that know how to sell really rack in the bucks based on that. But because they're in such low contracts to begin with, they're not making that much money. And the only one making money is the larger IMO, and they're making it off the leads. They become more of a lead vendor than, in fact, a insurance market. So, out of the mortgage protection, though, you get the biggest bang for the buck. It's a higher premium in a household, very similar sell to FE, but you might only be able to actively work in an area of, let's say, a 2-hour driving distance from your home. You might only get 10 to 15 leads a month. And yes, out of those 10 or 15 leads, you will sit down in front of 80% of those leads. So 15 leads, you're going to sit down in front of 12 people. Now, a very good agent will do pretty well in their closing ratio. An average agent will close half. A very good agent's going to sell 75% or more. One of my very good agents sells over 90% of everybody he sits down in front of on mortgage protection. So, the better you are at the business, you have a lot of success. So when there was tons of mortgages going out there, and during the heyday in 2005, it was like printing money in mortgage protection.
That's what I heard. Yeah, it was. I heard if you couldn't bust $175,000.
Yeah, and those were guys with 50, 60 point contracts. Okay, imagine me, which I always had top level contracts because of the volume I did. I was making. It wasn't that hard to make a lot of money, and we were getting 2% returns back then. And now, I was doing first class mail, so it cost me an extra $150 $1,000. And I was doing it mostly locally within the office constraints. But I sold most of that stuff over the phone or by fax through fully underwritten markets.
You probably one of the first contacts, too.
What I learned at MetLife with Century 21 is the one thing about mortgage protection, the first in wins. And when you sell that person a homeowner's policy and you predispose them to a mortgage protection policy after they move into the house, you're going to go out and see them. They don't even have a phone number yet, and they're going to get all this mail 2 to 3 weeks after they move in. But I've already talked to them 6 weeks ago.
And when they refinance, I refinanced my house about 4 years ago, and I got like 10 letters, but all that was squared away when I bought my house.
thing that they had with Century 21 really was a good thing, but they just didn't know what they had, and at MetLife, and unfortunately for them, and Prudential followed suit and started Prudential Real Estate, and but they never really embraced it, so it just became a standalone real estate division, and now you find the big real estate offices in each state actually trying to do it themselves, but they delegate themselves to a property casualty, homeowners only kind of business. They really don't know how to sell life insurance. So it really comes to building a relationship up at getting more leads, and that. But, overall, you're looking at mortgage protection as you're selling about 50 to 60% of your leads that you receive at a minimum, a policy. Now, overall, that cost can be, let me give you a perfect example. The average cost for an FE lead is about $450 $1,000. If you got a good lead, doesn't matter what you're putting in. That's how much it costs with postage and printing and a little bit for the vendor.
Right.
The mortgage protection lead costs more because the data is more expensive. It costs a vendor about $15 $1,000 to get the names that you're mailing to for final expense, but unless they're cutting some big deals, it'll cost anywhere from $75 to $120 for that vendor if they're getting it from the right source. There are only a couple of vendors in the country that actually know how to get the source data, and we all in the mortgage protection business buy from the same people. It's all about how fast can I get the letter out, how fast can I get it, a response. And, we're being lean and mean. We're actually doing a lot better job of it as the big, companies out there that are doing, 200,000 pieces a week. The mail, a mortgage protection, last year in 2014, there was only 440,000 mortgages on average closed in the whole nation. And, at that point. So they're, on a monthly basis. So you go to your states, like your big states in Texas for last month of May, there was only about 38,000 mortgages closed in the entire state. And that includes refinances, which is exactly. So,
Texas is a big state.
There's really not a lot of loans out there to get, your 1% response rate that mortgage protection gets. So now final expense, on the other hand, is a different market. It's a daytime market. And but you're a good agent's going to sell 25% of who he gets leads for, because you're not going to get a hold of 40% to 50% of the leads you get.
That's
exactly.
You know what?
So it's it's a volume game.
Yep.
A lot of agents think they can drop 1,000 pieces of mail and they're going to make a living. I'm like, not in my house.
Not exactly. Gonna happen. Not in the South either.
And it does matter on where you market.
Nowhere
too,
really,
You have to, in tough areas like in the South, you have to very get, into specific target marketing, and you have to change up the lead quite a bit. There are companies out there that pretty much use my lead naming, and I've told you about this before. And it's gotten so saturated now, that lead just isn't pulling the data anymore. And but so we're actually test marketing the new mailer right now, just to get the responses up. And it's a color piece mailer. I don't know if it'll work, but we're testing it in areas that we can very accurately tell you what the response rate would be with our main product, and we're just going to send the same message, but we're going to put it in a flashy envelope to try to get people to open more of it. And we're going to do some things to make them want to open it. And if we can get a sizable difference of like 20 basis points in return, and the cost is basically $5 more a month, I mean, that's a huge difference. That's an extra 2 leads for $5.
Yeah, Patrick, I see a lot of, I come from a marketing background. I've always been a marketing junkie. And what I've noticed is, I've looked at hundreds of lead cards, and they just all seem, I hear from people that have been doing this for decades, and not a lot's changed. It just seems, the direct mail pieces that people are using, nobody's innovating.
Well,
it
yeah,
seems
it
kind of
is.
static.
I mean, I talked to some of the biggest vending houses and looked at their leads and what they do. I mean, they actually send out a lead in a plain vanilla, plain white envelope, no print on it at all. All it's got is a return address and the standard class stamp for the bulk mail. Why on earth would anybody open that?
Right.
Yeah, looks like a bill collection
looks like
agency,
a bill.
Junk mail. I mean, why would I even open it? But you got to watch what you put inside the envelope. You can't make it look like it's like a government program. State of New Jersey cracked down on vending houses because they were putting Capitol buildings on the envelope. Things like make it look like it came from Washington and was federal government kind of stuff. That mind you, got a lot of opens, but states are cracking down at deceptive marketing. So, you have to be innovative and get people to open it without using deceptive tactics. Because in the end, we want them to read the message and send the card in. And that's the proprietary stuff that we bring to the table. It eventually gets stolen and somebody else uses. It's not worth it. All I want to do is stay ahead of the game. Because by the time somebody will steal a great idea, I did it a year or two ago. Now it's time for me to change my way of doing it now. So let them do it. What I did 2 years ago, I'll figure out something new to do. And that's the support that we legacy agents have. I mean, what a regular agent, mom and pop agent, is going to be able to afford to tinker with mail. Okay, I mean seriously, you got to make a living. You drop 3,000, you want 45 leads. That's our goal as every agent. And I got to drop 20,000 pieces, and I'm hoping to get 1.5. But if I get 1, or if I screwed up and got 0.5, it's my lesson, not the agent's. And then I'll just hand out the agent, the cards, at a fixed cost, that they want to buy it at. But it's a loss leader. It's something that we're doing to experiment. And then we come up with a great home run, and it we're getting 1.5%, 2%. We hit.
Well, again, saying that, Patrick, you're making money off premium and not leads too. So I mean,
insurance. So I don't have to make money. I don't have to clear $50-$60 per thousand on a mailer. Things like that. So what I do is I try to pass on as much of that savings to an agent so they can do more mail, cut down on their overhead, or we put, keep it real close to what market forces are going, and we use that profit to develop new mail and have the money to spend on a 20,000 piece drop. And to test out a market and to test what the response rates are. It doesn't matter what the return is. We want to, test the demographic. Is it better to send mail to this area just to African Americans and Hispanics, or is it just better to send it to all races? But we're going to tweak the income bracket. Do it. What kind of card are we going to say? We're going to keep it generic, state regulated benefit, or are we going to mention life insurance in it? What kind of response rate you're going to get. If you mention life insurance too much, you're not going to get a good response rate, but it's pretty much a guaranteed sale. If you keep it generic, you got to have the talent in the household to talk to people and get them to tell you everything about themselves, so you can either place an insurance policy or not. So you can get higher returns with saying less about life insurance, or you say more about life insurance and you get lower returns. I always say, a new agent should actually take the latter. Have life insurance in the name. Basically, we have a lead that we call it, the guaranteed sale. It's basically, we're selling life insurance. Do you want to buy some?
Right. Well, and I'll add to this. It's still a return versus contact ratio game at that point. I mean, you're even with it saying life insurance, you're still only going to, at best, I'd say contact on a good day or week, 60% at the most.
Yeah,
the rest,
found that percentage since we
you're still going to have to work towards it.
58 and 75. That percentage can be on the low end 60% of contacts because they're home war at specific times. Our ideal door knock time is I tell an agent, if you cannot make money on your leads unless you're willing to door knock. And if you're not willing to take a day and door knock, the most successful agents
I
in
hate
this
door
business
knocking,
do
but
what everybody else
I'll
hates
do it when I
to
have to.
And I my best agent,
I hate it, but
he makes appointments. He runs like 3 or 4 days in an area. He'll stay at a hotel. You guys have done this a lot, with your group, and but that's a lot of fun. He does it by himself, but he'll do this, and he makes appointments from a cell phone. He doesn't like using an appointment setter. So between appointments, he sets them an hour apart. He runs from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. He's running both final expense during the day and mortgage protection at night. And he'll try to set up 10 to 12 appointments a day, 1 hour apart. And he's doing it next day. So he's not trying to get appointments for next week. So when he's done with an appointment, part of his drive time is making phone calls to the next appointment and booking appointments for the next day. Yep.
Right, and I agree. Next day is always the best. I mean, that's how we operate.
Exactly. Now he's one of our NGAs. So what he does
the next round.
For those he can't get a hold of while he's out in that area, after trying to call him once or twice through, and he'll give those to his agents, at a cost that he's determined, and then they'll go out and pound it a little harder and not be able to. But he still writes, because he has an abundance of leads. He's writing $30,000 every time he goes out, and and he runs it. Now these aren't bad leads.
Right?
Called them twice. Yeah, it's all about timing. So they're good leads.
Hey, it's a timing
those guys
issue
write
too,
5,000 to 10,000 a week themselves.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the more leads you got, the more you're going to write, no doubt. Let me ask you this, Patrick. What's your opinion on, if you've got somebody that's, this could be mortgage protection or final expense lead, doesn't matter, really any kind of lead, but it's been generated through mail or phone, and you go to call, and you're on there, I'm responding, you do your whatever your shtick is to start off the conversation with them, and they just flat say, well, I'm not interested, I don't want it, blah blah blah, click. Well, I'll tell you mine, but I'm
if I'm
about
calling,
your
I rarely get the click.
What do you do with that?
But there are assholes, in the world, and most of them, don't, we have a.
There are.
If anybody's used lead connection cards, they come back in a lime green, kind of off green, pastel green. So what are the things we always say? Hi, this is Pat with Legacy Secure, and I'm calling about the green postcard that you just sent in the mail regarding our state-regulated insurance program. And do you remember getting that green card? That green card, I'm focusing on the green card. And they go, yeah, I do. I'm like, as the card said, there are additional benefits that you may be entitled for, and you just go right into your closing situation. You do, and I do that mostly in third party. So if I'm doing it for myself, everybody, I use my middle name. So this is Michael from Legacy Secure. And I do it in third party. One of the reasons why I like doing it in third party, like an appointment setter would, is just as an appointment setter would reach, is if they go ask, well, what is this all about? I'm like, I'm glad you asked that. And that's why Patrick will be in your neighborhood, next Tuesday and Wednesday, to be able to explain that. And they only need about 10 or 15 minutes every time, which day is better for you, Wednesday or Thursday. You go back to that alternate choice close, and occasionally you get that click. And that's what's, as my partner Mike says, that's a good door knocking call. He'll take those sons of bitches and he'll knock on their door.
Right.
He gets a rise out of it. Now half the time but some of our best sales came out of calls like that. So you don't give up on a lead until somebody into your face tells you to go to hell. Oh yeah.
Right. And they will sometimes. I mean, I've door knocked after my wife. She sets my appointments, and if she's ever got somebody hung up on her or whatever, I mean, she does her
job well. I've been
dying
to talk to your wife.
I have no doubt about that. I know how many passes
your
she
wife's
makes
skills are legendary in the forum. But I consider myself a very good
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Phone
She's good.
salesperson and then telemarketer and appointment setter myself. In fact, I got a little game that I play with guys that are having problems with setting appointments. I was like, well, great. I'll set every appointment and I'll make sure you run 10 appointments a day, but I want 30% of your business. And they go, well, okay, I'm getting nothing right now. So 30% ain't costing me anything. So we'll go right ahead. And I set their damn appointments up, and they look at the end of the week and they cut me a check for $1,500.
Well, and I know that she's, doing what she's supposed to do. I mean, she gets them on the phone. 90% of the time, if she's made contact, she's booking the appointment. Okay. So the ones she gets on the phone that are the 10%, they just hang up or they're, for whatever reason, it ain't going to happen. I'll door knock them, but, at that point, sometimes they remember the phone call, sometimes they don't. It's just, at that point, it's, for me, I hate the door knock, but I'm gonna go ahead and go do that just so I can, pretty much have an end result for that lead, and I can say, well, they, appointment didn't work on the phone, they wasn't home, or they told me to get out of there, or they wasn't interested, I couldn't get in the house for whatever reason. I'm pretty much done with that lead. I mean, I know there's guys that say,
and I'm gonna ask your wife one day, and you can ask her this, but I would bet that those idiots are between 50 and 57. And
most of them are.
That 50 to 57-year-old,
born in the middle 60s,
which is the person you're not going to sell anyhow, is where the most rude people are going to be in that age group on the phone when you're trying to get a hold of them. And when you're dialing 60-year-olds all the time, they're just a lot easier to deal with, a lot nicer. They're not as rushed for whatever reason, and it depends on who you're going to. I find that it doesn't matter what race or anything. The more the income, the harder they are to deal with. Exactly. And those in their 50s
That's
are
true.
usually still
working. That is true, especially if they're still working,
so it's hard to get a hold of them. The number they give is their cell phone number, and they got all caller ID, and if they don't recognize your number, they're not going to answer it. That's why it goes to voicemail all the time. And that's why door knocking is a necessity and final expense.
Right.
Now, and that's the difference. I think you have to, take a look at. Simple as that. That's why I think guys who call from their cell phones, their name displays on it, and it's not no company, and so people answer their other cell phone if a person's name comes across. On the cell phone number, if they've got, good caller ID set up on it. And so my guys that are doing it themselves from the cell phone between appointments for the next day, they actually get a lot better response to talking to people. But it's still 60%. Now, we do our door knocking at a different time. I teach guys to do door knocking starting at 5 o'clock. And finish their day off with it. A lot of guys, want to
finish their day off with
4 or 5 policies that day. They just want to find a bar, at 5 o'clock, And I'm like, we're in this business to work. You find a bar on Friday or Saturday.
Right.
So, we work from 9 to 9.
Yeah.
When you're in the field, you stay in the field. And that's the day you door knock. Do it between 5 and 9 because you got back-to-back hour appointments. So, but you can door knock and usually get in 2 or 3 homes from 5 to 9 o'clock. Most of my guys that do it, they sell their biggest cases at doing door knocking after 5 o'clock. I don't know what it is. They're just gone all day and then they're home at night. A lot of folks that are seniors, in their 60s, they're gone in the afternoon. So you either got to get them right at 9 a.m. or after 5.
Or 5. I'll tell you what I think it is. The reason why that happens, I think that it goes to our human DNA nature. Here's what I mean by that. At the end of the day, the body's winding down. There's less resistance. They know they need to do something, and I just think there's less reluctance because, their mind has been on all day, and I don't know. It just seems like it's easier to have a conversation about something that's uncomfortable to some people towards the end of the day. I don't know if there's anything to that, but that's just
I definitely
I
think you're onto something there. I'm talking to a guy that's worked nighttime appointments my entire career. When you're in fully insured market, you're dealing with people at work, so you're naturally meeting in between 5 and 9. And my appointments, my last appointment is actually between 8:30 and 9, so I don't leave the house till like 10:30 sometimes. And I try to get 4 solid appointments in between 5 and 9.
Right.
And but then those types of appointments, you're selling some big dollars throughout your career. At that point, you're lucky to get one appointment during the day. That's what I've loved about Final Expense. It's daytime appointments. You got something to do all day, and then you can turn around and work from 5 to 9. That's when mortgage protection is sold most of the time. Until recently, I've found that mortgage protection is being the people returning the leads are more in their 60s and 70s these days. So I wind up selling a Final Expense policy to a mortgage protection lead probably 30% of the time. And we're not able to, because they got more ailments, more things going on with them.
Wow.
So we end up selling what we call a payments plan, not a term, the mortgage balance. A lot of people want to pay the mortgage off. Well, they just can't afford a 15-year term policy in their 60s.
Right.
And they might have too many ailments where, a simplified issue term policy, they're not even qualified for it. But you can get qualified for level coverage with a number of carriers. Trans is very good. You can get up to $40,000 coverage at age 65 and $30,000 up to age 75. And another good product at that age is UHL.
Right.
They have a up to Table 8 product, 2 levels like Trans does, for level products, and they take a few risks that Trans doesn't like. So that's a good product. There are a ton of carriers out there. You can get up to $40,000 or $50,000 of coverage, all the way to age 75 using, simplified issue product. So what we do is, like, if a guy has a mortgage payment of $1,000 on a $100,000 loan, or a $150,000 loan, he's not going to be able to pay that mortgage off. So what we do is we sell 24 months of payments. So in essence, they need a $25,000 policy, and lo and behold, they can qualify it under FE. And if it's $25,000 they need, how much competition there is out there in the FE world. Everybody wants that business, so you're going to have one carrier be able to help that person out unless they're on dialysis.
Right.
And
Yeah. And then it comes to kind of like a I see where you're going with that. Let me ask you this, Patrick. And as we're kind of winding this down, there's something that I wanted you to touch on, because I know you have a lot of experience in it and you've seen it, come to the forefront.
Oh, yeah.
In FE. The SSB billing forms. Okay. There's only a couple of companies that, that are using it that I'm aware of, but I've talked to guys. I talked to a guy just not even 2 weeks ago, and I said, hey, Trans has got the new SSB billing form. There's another carrier that's got it, and I think there's maybe one more that actually had the separate billing form, other than the regular EFT that you don't even bother with if you want to set it up on the exact dates, so that, like you say, if it hits on a Saturday, their Social Security deposits, that the money actually gets, transferred on the Friday, okay? So it's increased persistency. But can you touch on that a little bit? And the guys I'm talking to, some are like, well, I never use that form. I'm like, look, are you writing people that are paying on the first and the third? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, use that form.
Have Social Security billing on the first and the third. Most of them do Social Security billing on the second, third, and fourth Wednesday of the month. I'm going to give you an example. Foresters and RNA both allow second, third, and fourth Wednesday of the month, but they use traditional first and third billing for those 2 dates. So if the first or the third is on a Saturday, they're going to draft on that Monday. Whereas the people who have gotten the money on a Friday, and if you don't get it the same day they got it, it's gone by Monday. And
Right. Well, what I'm saying is though on that SSB billing form, like for instance, well, Forces doesn't have one, but they've got obviously they've got where you can, and
Right.
they don't have it out there. Well, they do have it out there. You have to look for it, but you can write second, third, or fourth Wednesday above that on the EFT form. But what I'm saying is that for instance with Trans, and there's another carrier. I'm not sure if Trans does that or not.
Yeah.
The other one I know
Trans
of that
is
does
like
it,
that. I think
they have
Trinity
it
is
where
like
you
that
can
also.
pick first, third, or
And
one of the Wednesdays.
and these,
And
not that you
okay.
can compare Trans
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Trinity. That's just, obviously different size company, different size problems.
That's
Trinity,
true, yeah.
is very agent focused, but they're a small company, and
Right.
it doesn't take a lot. What Trans does in a week is what Trinity does in 3 months. So that's an apples and oranges comparison. So when you get a company like Trans making a wholesale change and how they do final expense business, it's a big deal. And I'm going to give you a little example. The Social Security billing method to me is an aha moment. I've had 2 aha moments in my career as an agent. The first one was in 1995 when I realized that when you want to sell auto insurance and you use credit reports as a means of predicting future loss and give discounts, a lot of people said, "Nah, that ain't." And credit has nothing to do with losses in auto insurance. Well, I bought into it. I believed it, and I had an aha moment that I was an average agent, had a 60% loss ratio using the old traditional ways of auto insurance, and all of a sudden credit scoring came in to the underwriting process for discounts. I was able to sell a buttload of insurance, to my clientele who happened to have a lot of money, had good credit, but because I did that, my loss ratio in 1 year dropped to 20%. Insurance companies found a way to make money using
Well, Patrick, that's just unconstitutional.
That nobody else said that doesn't make sense. It'll never work.
Exactly.
Now, I was always worried about Trans
manages
as
your
a
adverse
company
risk
because they were slow to move. And when they merged Monumental into the Trans name and the Trans company and staff, Monumental had some very good systems and places. Everybody loved using Monumental. Then they became part of the larger Trans group of family markets, and now Trans Premier. So they became a little slow on change, just like Trans was. And it's hard to move a big company. But I can just tell you from experience, we write a lot of Trans business. And as an agency, we were under 70% first year lapse ratio because of Trans's slow way of notifying an agent of NSF. It's like 3.5 weeks later, and then you find out somebody's got an NSF, and now you got to try to collect 2 payments instead of 1.
Yep.
And it's just not a good thing. And so policies lapsed at a higher rate. Well, when they introduced the SSI and SSDI form for Social Security billing at Trans in October of last year, we made a conscious effort, because we had slowed down using Trans at all, to making a conscious effort at selling Trans, but only if we use the Social Security billing form. And we were able to measurably take a look. Our loss ratio went from 68. Our lapse ratio went from 68%. And from October until we measured it at the end of May, it stands at 97% now. But yeah, huge. And the reason why it's at 97% is people do call up and change their mind during the underwriting process.
Consistency, yeah.
But we have yet, since October, to have 1 NSF. And we're talking hundreds and over 1,000 policies.
Using that form, yep.
That's an aha moment. That's it. That's it right there. So obviously, if a
that's
company,
your aha moment there, yeah.
Which is slow to move, can finally make a profit by keeping policies on the books and getting paid on time. The little companies kind of showed the way, like a Trinity out there. I know Settlers has got it planned for the end of the year because they've already put it on their applications that they refiled in every state. So I think they're just working out the bugs, and we'll roll it out. And I think that'll be a great thing with settlers. Foresters, R&A do it. They just need to add the first and third on the billing. I think, once they're just going to see trans is making money, huge money.
I hope everybody does.
And they're going to emulate the big guy. It's not just a little guy showing the way. Now it's a big guy showing the way. And I think it'll be the standard in the next 4 years. Yeah.
Well, I think it almost has to be if they want to, if a carrier wants the business from that market, they're
you're going to see
they're going to be around. They really want to be in the final
expense
business.
Change.
They're going to have to.
I always call final expense business. It's not about rich, poor, black, white. It has nothing to do with that. It's about being irresponsible and responsible. And that's what final expense business is to me. It's dealing with irresponsible people.
Right.
And irresponsible people don't pay their bills on time. They'd rather drop your life insurance policy to buy a quart of whiskey. It doesn't. They're or the cable TV, or I got a new bill this month. I'll just pick it up next month.
Yep.
And
or the cable
there's
TV.
A lot of rewrites in this business because of that attitude. But if you're able to take out the money before they get a chance to spend it, and then after a couple of months, it's kind of routine. They expect it. And you're going to have your fall off after 6 months, but that person's going to have to make the effort to call in and stop it. Yeah, they just can't just take all the money out and say, a lot of people don't like confrontation. They don't like making an effort.
Exactly. There's got to be some work on their end.
So that's a typical irresponsible person. They would rather have a bounce check, a charge, and you not getting any money than actually picking up the phone call and canceling the policy. So because they've got to go through that extra step, they're not going to do it. So you're going to have some fall off, but it's going to be in normal parameters in the upper 90s. I predict first-year persistency for almost every agent if they were to do it this way, whether you got Trinity, whether you got Forrester, whether you got RNA, whether you got Trans. If you use Social Security billing for final expense as a mandatory item, especially for 65 and older, with your customers, your persistency will shoot through the roof. And then you get those. Everybody likes to talk about renewals and final expense. Reality is renewals are.
I agree.
Okay, because they drop off so fast. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when you're getting those 8, 9, 10% renewals with some of the companies, and they're actually keeping the policies now because they're on that Social Security billing, that's going to be some nice income for a guy. But right now, as it sits, my highest contract on renewals have the worst billing program. It is. I mean, I look at United Home Life. A lot of guys like UHL. A lot of guys don't.
Isn't that a shame?
They pay some rock solid second and third year commissions, but they're billing. The good thing about them is they'll notify you within 48 hours of an NSF, but they still struggle with agent having 70% first-year lapse ratios. Terminate guys based on first-year lapse and all the time. And they're such a niche-y product, people don't make them their primary carrier.
Well, yeah, and there's some things that an agent can do to improve their persistency on their own, but there's a lot of times
and the company's niches.
They can't.
I think every company's going to eventually
kind of a two-way street
billing,
if
they want to keep
the billing
their business.
intersection,
and that'll bring companies like UHL. That's a good niche product. That'll bring companies, that are niche-y and certain products, that don't have Social Security billing right now. That'll put the agent back in charge again. Because now, you're kind of stuck on who is able to offer Social Security billing, and you're kind of afraid to offer niche products sometimes because it's going to lapse. And that's, who else in this business that does, a systemic lupus other than UHL, at a level rate, and most of it's graded or declined. United Heritage, has some very good, underwriting for heart conditions. But they, need to be on board with Social Security billing also, because they're a niche product. Otherwise,
Yep.
And SNLs, a lot of guys like SNL, but they're,
Right.
for a lot of reasons,
They are. Yeah.
but
Hmm.
yeah. So, so they're a good go-to
Well,
company for your healthy.
yeah. Well, you gotta be, healthy
But
or really sick. I mean,
everybody's
that's
in that
just
middle of the
that product.
road.
There's no
So
in
why do
between.
guys
Yeah.
like writing so much trans? Because it's middle of the road. It
Yep.
still offers a good premium. Yeah, their app is a nightmare, but that's training from your upline that needs to be addressed, not so much the agent, and those types of things. So you've got to look at, who's your middle of the road carrier. Those are the ones that need to have those, for an agent to survive long term, to have that Social Security billing and get paid doing it. So yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, I tell you, I mean, I'm all about
Yeah. Yeah. That's what we're working.
teaching what I know to people.
We were not working for
It
free.
is, I can sit on here and I can talk another 3 hours, you know, and the guys who know me know I can. So it is a long conversation, and it's part of mentorship, and I try to teach that through my mentorship with our agents. And to be honest with you, it's part of a responsible upline. There are a lot of uplines out there, that do mentorship. Dave Duford is another guy from the forum who's really doing a great job talking to kids and getting them on board. I there's Ben
Yep.
Bowman's really good. Teaching brand new
He,
guys, a system that of
he
work
is.
ethic
He's
and things
awesome.
like
Yeah.
that. But in the end, this business is all about your work ethic and whether or not you
Yep.
treat this as a business. And if you're going to be a good agent and you're going to, treat this as a business, you're going to get good at your craft, which is salesmanship. Learn products. Grow out of simplified issue. Reach out to other products. That's when they're ready for legacy. And that's kind of where we're a niche. We're looking for guys that want to go to the next level. And we're not going to get 5,000 agents knocking at my door. you know but we will make agents, or teach them how to make good money. And it's a lot of fun. We do things, we do
Right.
it together. It's a true
Right.
partnership.
Yeah.
We believe in success through partnership. And that's kind of what we're all about. So I hope I've been able to add something to your listeners' viewing pleasure. and you know it,
Oh, definitely, definitely. And I wanted to say, with that, taking the call to
sure.
an end, if you could, Patrick, if you
It's
could give out,
again,
your
I'm
name again,
Patrick
and
Pegram, or the
tell
Skipper.
everybody what your website
Been
is
known
and
as
any contact
Twilight on the
information or
insurance
anything
forums.
if somebody wants to reach out
And
to you.
our website is real simple. LegacyAgent.com is the website for agents and wanting to know more information about our company. We also have a retail site for our agents called LegacySecure.com, where customers would go to, and they use the Legacy brand for our agents. And I'm available anytime. You can just tap the website. You'll see my a fake picture of me on there. But he's a good-looking 50-year-old man. All the other people is their actual pictures, actually, so on that website. But I just had to be pretty for that picture.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, anybody can call me during the week. I do go out on the field a couple of days a month. But most people, have a
I
way
hear
of
you.
easily
I
getting
hear
hold
you.
of me. My email address is right on the website under the get to know me personally. There's a direct link, but they can also just type in Patrick at legacyagent.com, and that'll get me directly to me too.
Hmm.
So easy to get a hold of. I'm usually available from by phone from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, it's very easy to get a hold of me along that line. If anybody has any questions, I feel, tell them to be ready. I might talk for an hour, but, I'll tell them anything they need to know. I'm all about. Yeah, yeah, you did tell me you take lots of notes when we talk.
I'll tell them get out their pencil, pen, and paper. Definitely. Yeah, I've been taking them here. Yeah, again, I took them again today. So yeah. So well, look, Patrick, I really appreciate your time. This has been wow, a really, really information-packed interview. I'm gonna go and
It's
listen
been
to
a
it
pleasure.
again
Good luck
here
to
in a
you
little
there,
while.
and good luck to your
And
audience.
again, I
Take care.
appreciate your time.
Bye-bye.
And if you need anything, reach out to me, and I'm sure we'll be talking again soon. Okay. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you. Bye bye.
And there you have it, guys. Awesome interview with Patrick Pegram. Again, he's with legacyagent.com. Again, legacyagent.com. And remember, check back weekly or every other week for the best interviews in the final expense industry. If you need leads, reach out to us. www.theleadjerk.com. Again, www.theleadjerk.com.